Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast, a mailbag edition. Thanks for being patient. We just dropped a bunch of articles at ontheponyexpress.com. Be sure to subscribe. $30 gets you 6 months of On the Pony Express. That's just $5 a month. So be sure to check out those premium articles we dumped on the website Friday morning. A lot of scoop on there. So that was kind of part of the delay. I was chasing a bunch of stuff yesterday when I meant to record this podcast. So let's jump on in with our mailbag questions. I'm not going to keep you guys waiting for the first question of the thread and also what most people are interested in, and that is Pac-12 expansion, their media rights deal, where the Big 12 factors in, does the Big 10 factor in, all of those things. And we haven't talked about it in a minute, so we'll jump right in. And Pony Excess asks, is there any truth to the Colorado and possibly another school rumor that there was going to be movement to the Big 12 this week? It was posted by another publisher on our network. And well, time has come and gone for when those big moments were set to kind of happen, according to him and maybe one of the Twitter voices out there. But no, I never really bought into the Colorado to Big 12 movement. We've talked about this on another podcast, and point blank, Colorado likes where it's at with the Pac-12 from an academic standpoint. They also like where the league is enough from an athletic standpoint as well to stay put. There's not going to be that much more money on the table, if there is more money even on the table, to make a move to the Big 12. And in all seriousness, the big thing with Colorado, as we've discussed, is the academic profile of the other institutions in the league that they have really honed in on as far as growing their university from an academic perspective. They also pull from a large part of Pac-12 country. We've talked about California. We've talked about Arizona as well. They are a school that is committed to the Pac-12 from both an academic and an athletic perspective. So I never bought in to that rumor that they were talking about on the other message board, and also that we've seen pop up here and there throughout the course of realignment talk. So I encourage you guys to continue to try to sift through the random rumors that pop up. I mean, just this week, to kind of update, some of the national guys brought back up the point that Oregon and Washington could be on the move to the Big 10 and have been, quote, cleared and vetted by the league to join. And now, look, I think phrasing is certainly of importance when it comes to a lot of this realignment discussion. And if you were to ask me if the Big 10 had a list, would Oregon and Washington be on it for realignment? I would say yes. I don't think that'd be any surprise. If you look at the top candidates for the Big 10, it would probably be Notre Dame, and it would probably be Oregon and Washington. Does that mean they're going to make a move on them? No, absolutely not. Now, the reasoning for the lack of movement was the Big 10 didn't want blood on its hands for the Pac-12 falling apart. Quite honestly, in the world of conference realignment and expansion, it's a load of crap. None of these leagues really care what they're going to do to the other. We've seen that, of course, with the Big 12 and how they're trying to market themselves compared to the Pac-12, and also trying to poach those schools from the Pac-12. The ACC, we've seen it. Florida State has spoken out about where the league stands. The SEC didn't care at all about potentially blowing up the Big 12 when they took Texas and Oklahoma. So there's no feelings in this game of conference realignment and expansion. So if that's the cover that people are putting out there for why the Big 10 hasn't moved on Oregon and Washington, quite frankly, it's just not. It's not there. And it doesn't really hold much substance. The Big 10, if they wanted to take Oregon and Washington, that would be probably something that both schools would give serious thought to. But I will say, I actually caught up with another Oregon source this week, and the message was pretty simple. And look, I think there are only a few people that at the top of each university and the top of these leagues know exactly kind of what's going on and if a potential move would happen. But that Oregon source was very adamant that they are staying in the Pac-12. It's a league that they think they can win year in and year out. I mean, I think they have the kind of the pedigree to support that. Utah, kind of the same story. Washington, programs like that, they believe that their path to a college football playoff appearance would still be very strong coming out of the Pac-12, even if they beat up on what would be, compared to when it is with UCLA and USC, kind of a watered down league. Even if they come out of the watered down Pac-12, it would be a very good resume. They'd be one of the top schools in the country in the college football playoff. They'd probably be a host. So when it comes to the Pac-12, Oregon and Washington are the two big names at the top as far as potential movement goes. I mean, they would really be the ones that would stir the drink of conference realignment when it comes to Pac-12 schools potentially leaving. I still don't think they're going anywhere. I think they like where they're at. And I think the Big 12's or the Big 10's actions have backed that up as well. So I don't buy the Big 10 has feelings for how the Pac-12's future plays out. They would just, if they could or wanted to take Oregon and Washington, they would have already done that. So that is kind of the latest on the Pac-12 falling apart buzz that we seem to go through every couple of weeks or so. So I'm waiting and curious to see what'll be up next. Tony Altmore had a good quote from Adam Rittenberg, which kind of reiterated a lot of what he's certainly heard on his end, as far as watching this whole thing unfold. But he said, quote, and he shortened it, said, "There's a lot of bad info coming out of the Big 12. I think this has been one of the dumbest stories in my career. It's just a dumb story. I look forward to us moving on." Well, cheers to moving on. That is for sure. I think all of us are kind of ready for the next round of realignment to come, and that would be the Pac-12 settling in on a media rights deal and leading to expansion. If that expansion happens, which I expect it to, that would include SMU and San Diego State. Multiple sources continue to remain confident on where SMU stands and San Diego State as far as heading to the Pac-12 when a media rights deal does get completed. And look, we're almost halfway through May. Most of these presidents and athletic directors, when they've talked, have punted on obviously what the buzz was early in the spring, which was that, around March or early April, there would be a deal completed. That's now been kind of pushed back to, summer. We really haven't heard anything too new as far as when things could kind of fire up and get close. And I mean, I think it's just a status quo right now. They are working through a lot of the details of this deal when it comes to piecing it together. We've seen here and there reports of, so-and-so backing out or so-and-so not wanting to do it because of layoffs or whatever. But, ESPN even locked in on Pat McAfee to anchor some of their coverage on their network in a massive deal. So they're not afraid to do anything, and they just laid off a bunch of people as well. So I think this is still coming down to what are honestly finer details in the massive grand scheme of this. So you're looking at a deal that is going to encompass all sports across the league. You're working with Apple and Amazon, who have really been non-existent in the college space. And that's important to note. I think putting together a deal like this is something that is not easy. And they've got to package it all up and figure out what's the best way to get it out there and get it out there for a large number of people in the right way. So everyone I talked to and a couple people on the national side of things, obviously some SMU sources, they remain confident. SMU is in prime position to go to the Pac-12. There is a waiting period on the media rights deal right now to get done on the Pac-12 side of things. I'm interested to see when it does get completed. But this is a stable conference that is waiting to see its media rights deal come together, and then they'll make their move in expansion when it comes to SMU and San Diego State. I believe they're the ones that are going to get the call. So status quo. We've seen the latest rumor mill rip up the message board for another week, and congratulations for some of you who thought that somebody on a message board was going to break something happening in a day or two, and then nothing coming of it again. So we'll continue to track Pac-12 realignment. Of course, if anything kind of happens on that front and kind of what the impact might be for SMU, but continue to remain pretty confident that SMU is in a good spot when it comes to realignment in regards to the Pac-12. So we'll continue to track it as we always do at ontheponyexpress.com. So be sure to subscribe. $30, 6 months, gets you all the latest on Pac-12 realignment, college football recruiting, transfer portal, basketball recruiting, all of those things. So check it out. It's just $5 a month, really, when you do it over the course of when you do it over the course of those 6 months, and then it goes to annual. So not that much there for you guys. Quick reminder, guys, before we go on with the podcast, check out that contest. Win a free Boulevard tailgate for 30 of your friends, catered by Smoke Provisions. They are unbelievable in terms of what they can do for you. They'll work with you on your custom menu for that tailgate. There's going to be beer provided. All you got to do is subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com if you're not already a subscriber. If you are a subscriber, and once you're subscribed, try to get as many people as you can to join ontheponyexpress.com. Each person that joins will continue to stack you up on the leaderboard to getting this free tailgate. And I think some of you guys are forgetting kind of, quite frankly, how easy this one could be. It's probably a $1,500 tailgate. You get a few friends together, join the site, email me at billy.embody@on3.com with your friends who have jumped on board. And who knows, you might be the winner. Contest ends next week, so check that out. Details are at ontheponyexpress.com on the message board. So check that out. Finally, one more question on the biggest benefit to Pac-12 expansion for SMU if it happens for the non-revenue sports. And this question coming in from Couchum. And somebody answered it on the message boards. SMU AD MSD said men's swimming. I'd be hard pressed not to agree with that one. This is a sport that, on the West Coast is huge. A lot of the schools are powerhouses out there from what I understand in my loose following of swimming and diving. And whenever you're able to be out there a little bit more on the West Coast and get SMU's name out there, I would think it would benefit you, in a big way when it comes to swimming and diving. And one note that I'll make: SMU did make a new hire in swimming and diving, and they hired Alabama assistant. Looking it up right now, Ozzie Quivito, who's is the new women's head coach at SMU. I will say, I think SMU is going to go a little bit more international, from what I understand. I talked with a source of mine who is in the swimming and diving world, and this was a really, really strong hire for SMU. Kind of looking up my notes on it right now, and they said it's going to be a big move for SMU when it comes to recruiting a little bit more internationally. So be sure to kind of stay on the lookout for that. So we'll see. But a nice hire for SMU and Ozzie Quivito. I'll continue to work on that as the head women's swimming and diving coach. So we'll continue to keep an eye on the new hires for SMU as they roll in. But also, I will say maybe volleyball would be a good beneficiary of a move to the Pac-12 as well. So that is those are my picks when it comes to non-revenue sports improving in the Pac-12 for SMU. When it comes to the NCAA Transfer Portal, SMU continues to mine it. They are hosting a pair of official visitors this weekend. Of course, subscribe to the website. You'll find out who. But they did pick up Texas State transfer Micah Hiltz this week. We already talked about him. Big body, run blocker that SMU is bringing in to the fold now. But one player that we've been monitoring behind the scenes is Miami tight end Khalil Brantley, and he tweeted this week that he's still open. And from what I understand, SMU has their tight end in the transfer portal with Micah Hiltz. Big body that can move the pile. But Khalil Brantley is a guy that they've certainly vetted and wanted to bring in for an official visit, but it's not going to work out. So they're moving on, and they got their tight end with Micah Hiltz. And that is kind of where the tight end position ends as far as the transfer portal goes, barring a major change. So they're bringing in, obviously, Lonnie Johnson, who came in the spring as an early enrollee. They have Trip Reardon and Adam Moore coming in this summer as true freshmen. They have RJ Maryland coming back. They have Nolan Matthews-Harris coming back. Cam Allen didn't hit the portal. And so that is your tight end group. So we will continue to keep an eye on if anything changes on the tight end front. But Micah Hiltz is your big body tight end that they're bringing in to kind of help move the pile and keep things rolling along when it comes to the offense. Maybe give Elijah Chapman a breather as that H-back spot. As far as transfer portal targets go, SMU did host a pair of official visitors last weekend, or a trio of official visitors last weekend. If you didn't check those out at ontheponyexpress.com, SMU has gotten 2 commitments of those 3 now already. The third one you can go check out at ontheponyexpress.com and see where things stand there. And then SMU is hosting another pair of official visitors this weekend, 2 highly, highly touted transfers in the portal. So check out the scoop on them at ontheponyexpress.com. When it comes to targets out there in the transfer portal, there are a couple others floating around, but obviously the 2 that everybody wants to know about, Jordan Hudson, the former 5-star wide receiver who's transferring from TCU, and then Kyron Chambers, the former Dallas South Oak Cliff standout, who's also transferring from TCU out of the secondary there. Both remain top priorities for the Mustangs when it comes to the transfer portal. And unless you've been living under a rock, the Mustangs sit as the team to beat for those 2 guys. We'll continue to track their movements behind the scenes on theponyexpress.com. So I just dropped another notebook on those guys as well. The content is just flowing over there at ontheponyexpress.com. If you're not a subscriber, check it out. Don't be left behind or in the dark. Those 2 guys would completely one would complete the transformation of the secondary, and another one would add a probably instant competitor at a starting receiver spot in the wide receiver room in Jordan Hudson. I think when you look at that wide receiver room, you have Jordan Curley, who had a terrific spring. You have Jake Bailey, who's going to come back and battle with Roderick Daniels for that slot position. And then you have Keyshawn Smith, Moochie Dixon, Romello Brinson, all battling for time at the outside receiver spots, kind of behind Jordan Curley. How would Jordan Hudson fit in? I'd be hard pressed to say he might not be able to, like he wouldn't be a starter. I think he's really, really talented. Just from everything I've heard about him, he is going to be one of those guys. I think if he does end up at SMU like we expect, that can come in right away and be a starter. If not a starter, first guy off the bench. I think Moochie Dixon's spring gives him a little bit more confidence. He could end up starting. Keyshawn Smith has the talent to certainly be a starter. And Romello Brinson did some good things over the course of the back half of spring. So that wide receiver position group would be even stronger. And then Kyron Chambers, you look at him coming in as a second-year player for SMU. If he does end up committing, you just added Keyshawn Mills to the mix. You just added Jalen Davis Robinson going into the spring. They have a ton of young second-year players at the cornerback position, and Kyron Chambers can play corner. He can play safety. I think that's the intriguing thing with him is how does he fit in? And that's a good thing for SMU. If you add somebody like Kyron Chambers, he could even be your nickel long-term. I think the world of what they could do with him if they get him on board. So that is kind of the latest transfer portal buzz around SMU. A really good question came in from Whiskey Pony, and there's been a change to the NCAA scholarship rules. The NCAA going into this spring for the 2023-2024 academic year and beyond, they've said that for transfers from four-year colleges whose championship eligibility first occurs in the 2023-2024 academic year. So this is now going forward. So I don't believe it applies to really any of these guys that SMU's taken. All of these guys can, quite frankly, as you'll hear the rule, They can be cut. They can be, pushed into the portal. They, scholarships are year to year, things like that. Now the rule reads that the amount of financial aid provided during the first year of the scholarship must be the minimum provided in subsequent years. And so this is a lot of this matters a lot for non-revenue sports that give out quarter scholarships, half scholarships, three-quarter scholarships, whatever percentage of a scholarship that happens. But it affects football, basketball, and the big sports as well. That aid is now guaranteed through the end of the athlete's 5-year clock or until they graduate, whichever occurs sooner, unless they transfer again or engage in professional athletic opportunities. So, for example, if a school provides 40% scholarship in year one, it cannot offer less than 40% in future years. Athletes may not voluntarily release their scholarships. So, you are a counter no matter what when it comes to being a part of a program until your 5-year clock ends or you graduate. So, a school can pull the scholarship of a non-transfer athlete for entering the portal, but transfers will now have their athletic aid protected if they enter the transfer portal again. So let's say X 2023 signee for SMU comes in and he enters the portal. Well, SMU can pull their aid and not bring him back. He doesn't have the option to return. If SMU brings in, like they did with, like, let's say a Jalen Davis Robinson, a guy who was a 2022 signee for LSU, let's fast forward that a year. Let's say SMU brings in somebody who was a 2023 signee elsewhere, and they bring him in December 2023 in time for the spring. He didn't like it wherever he was. They can't pull that scholarship if they enter the transfer portal again, and they can't really do that anyway. So they're tied in for a while to this scholarship player, which is important to know. And that the question from Whiskey Pony is does that make schools more selective? And I would say absolutely. I don't think there's, I think you've got to be a little bit more, you got to be wiser about how you're going to go after these types of players when it comes to the transfer portal, because you've really got to be able to pick guys that are going to produce and produce at a high level. Because if you don't, you're going to be stuck with players that, quite frankly, you can't get too much out of for a long period of time. And people like going to school at SMU. So I think that is really a key piece here when it comes to the transfer portal. You're going to be a little bit more selective when it comes to these players that are coming into your program. So something to note there. Good question, Whiskey Pony, and actually brought something to my attention that I didn't know about. We move on to another question that came in on the linebacker group for SMU. And the question says, from probation coach, is the linebacker group actually okay, or is it just coach peak when they say they have a room full of guys they trust? Worried we'll miss Jimmy Phillips and Isaac Slade-Matatia more than we think. I will say I think SMU is going to miss them more than people think. I know the defense caught a lot of hell last year for, obviously the tackling and things like that, but this is a group that was, veteran. They ran well. They were athletic. They could really put it together when it comes to, being that guy, for them, especially Jimmy and even Slade. I think really caught a lot of, flack for really just how he played, when in reality, I mean, he was a pretty good player. So I think it's a group that now, as it stands, you've got Ahmad Walker coming in. You've got, and he was here for the spring. You moved up Chris Adamora into the linebacker room, and he looks like he's, really looking the part of a linebacker. You have Jaquandis Burns coming back, and then you have Alex Kilgore, who came in as a true freshman this spring. He was available. He was ready to go. And then you also add Kobe Wilson, a multi-year starter or a multi-year contributor for Temple out of the transfer portal at linebacker. And he can run and really contribute at a solid level, I think, for SMU. So I think this linebacker room is going to have to show it. I think that's an important piece. Whenever you talk about transfers, there's always some uncertainty with regards to how they could play, how they can produce, and all of those things. But it's a group that I think is going to be better than we think. I think they're going to have a chance to really piece together a nice season, especially Ahmad Walker. I think he's going to be so much more comfortable when it comes to how he's going to produce and how he's going to be able to, compete for SMU. So I think his leadership is going to be key. But I don't think it's just coach speak. I really don't. I like where SMU has addressed, their team in the transfer portal with Ahmad Walker and Kobe Wilson. I think those are two guys that can run and move around and doing all those things. And I think even more so, the biggest thing is they're all pretty smart guys, and they seem to be locked in to what Scott Simons is preaching and kind of how he wants things done. And it really starts with Ahmad Walker. And I think that's where you're not going to necessarily miss that experience as much when it comes to bringing in a guy who has played for Scott Simons and knows what he wants out of his players. I think that's really important for SMU to have, is somebody who's going to be able to lead the charge day in, day out, and really, like I said, just kind of set the tone in a positive direction for SMU in that linebacker room. So I think they're going to be in a good spot at that linebacker position. Now, another question comes in on the running back room, a pair of questions. And the first one is what's up with Kamar? This is from Pony XCS 90. What's up with Kamar? Look, I think Kamar Wheaton is somebody that right now has to double down on what's important. And there are two pieces to this. One is academics. He missed some of spring for not being in line with what they want academically. And so you've got to get that together. You've got to get that, through to him that he can't play if you don't take care of things in the classroom. And then, when he returned, he showed a little bit. And then he also, on the flip side of things, wasn't really able to, do much because he was hurt. So I think for Kamar Wheaton right now, it's total wait and see. And he has shown at times on the field what he can do when he's healthy. But on the flip side of things, he hasn't, really done too much as a member of the team to give you confidence in him long term, which is unfortunate because he has so much talent. So when you look at this running back room, and the other question was out about Jalen Knighton and his fumbling, this is a room that really, really, really is going to be in a good spot because of Jalen Knighton, because of LJ Johnson. You'll get Tyler Levine back this fall. You'll have Velton Gardner, who had a really nice spring practice as well. I think those two at the top, Jalen Knighton and LJ Johnson, are the true difference makers that are going to take this room to the next level. You know what Tyler Levine can do. You know how much he runs with heart and he runs with energy and all of those things. And I think for him, it's going to be another adjustment because you do have all this talent. Jalen Knighton, he's got to continue to take care of the football. He had a couple fumbles here or there in the spring, but I think he's a guy that people are going to be really excited about. And it's almost like the physical runs that you would kind of expect maybe a fumble to happen. Those are the moments where he held on to it and he finished his run really hard and all those things, kind of carrying it through space here and there. And it kind of popped out a couple of times. Those are when, we saw those moments where it kind of hit. And those are the moments where we were like, okay, there's the fumble and ball security that people were talking about. But he's going to be really, really special for SMU. So excited to see what Jalen Knighton can do. This is a fun question. The walk-on champion of the spring, which is a power rankings of 1, 2, 3. This question coming in, and I really like this one because I will say from Magnificent Glending, SMU did work in the walk-ons a good bit this spring. They knew what they had in a couple guys, and other guys got some reps because of it. I'll go Carter Campbell, number 1. I think he was a pretty sure-handed wide receiver this spring, made some really nice plays, some contested catches, things like that. Connor Moore is kind of like an H-back playing wideout, and he was just really physical. He caught my eye a couple times. Ford Parker was the defensive back in the secondary that out of the walk-ons kind of caught our eye, made some nice breakups. And then I'll give you guys an honorable mention because if you ever meet this guy, and we've kind of joked about talking to him for media availability, but we get, only so many guys we can talk to. But Johnny Schifano, the punter, he's got an incredible mustache, looks like a fun guy, looks like your kind of typical walk-on specialist. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. Maybe we'll have him on the podcast at somewhere like Milo's or get to know him a little bit. But another question, has SMU offered a 2027 prospect? And actually they have, which it drives me nuts because they haven't even gone through their freshman year yet. But Dylan McGee, 2027 defensive back, who's going to play at DeSoto this fall. He is also an incredible baseball prospect. Ricky Hunley went ahead and offered him. I think that's the only one. There might be a couple of running backs or something out there that have picked up 2027 offers, but that's the one off the top of my head that I know we're going to be tracking for a long, long time. As a prospect. Another question, does football or hoops have a higher win total? I'm going to go with hoops. I think they're going to jump up a little bit. They won, I had it right in front of me before we started the podcast. They won 10 games last year. I think we're in for a program that can win all of 16, 17 games. And that's just me kind of looking at it outside, looking in without having looked at the rest of the league just yet. But I do think they're going to see a little bit of a jump in their win total. So I'll go with hoops, but it's going to be tough to beat that SMU football 15 wins. So we'll continue to see who beats who on that one. Dre Foster, he was with the team and then left mid-season. I think he's done with basketball. He might come back, but he's not coming back at SMU. He didn't do anything wrong. He just had some things to take care of. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. He's okay. But anyway, he's not going to return to SMU basketball. I don't know what his future plans are with regards to the sport, but we'll see if he pops up anywhere. Finally, last question, because a lot of them I think were sarcastic. I got 2 more questions, but family members going to Lake Charles for Memorial Day. Do I recommend it? Is there enough to do for 3 days besides gamble? I think there's enough to do. I think if you stay at the Golden Nugget or LeBeur's, you can enjoy the pool. Plenty of activities to do around there. I've heard the downtown in Lake Charles. Actually, I heard. I've been to the downtown. I like it for let's say a bigger Louisiana town. Just really kind of cool old school downtown. So you can enjoy that. The Imperial Calcasieu Museum gives a good look into Louisiana heritage. I've actually been there. I enjoy it. I'm a history buff though, so it might not be for some. It looks fairly small when you pull up to it, but the big oak tree in the back is pretty impressive too. So even just driving by, you can see that. But yeah, just enjoy the food. Try to just get some restaurant recommendations around there, and I think you'll be fine, especially Memorial Day if you get there Friday. And kind of just go out to dinner, and then Saturday pool, Sunday pool. Monday you head out if that's how long the trip is. I think that'll be fine. And then finally, Kurt asked me, if I had a spirit animal, what would it be and why? I had to look up the spirit animals. I would think based on my spirit animal for the website, I would be the mouse. It represents the ability to pay attention to small details and how to discern the important from the irrelevant. So I think I've covered that with conference realignment. So I guess I'm a mouse. And you can also live on the most meager of materials. So, um, yeah, I'll go with the mouse for you guys. So I'll continue to help you guys weed through the BS as best I can. So, with that, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and we will catch you guys next week. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about next week as SMU continues to go after the transfer portal. Be sure to check out our podcast that just dropped on Tennessee transfer BJ Edwards committing to SMU as well. We've got you guys covered on the basketball front too. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the podcast, and we'll catch you guys next week. Have a good weekend, everyone.